All right. Well, good evening. Welcome to the webinar. So tonight we'll be hosting a town hall panel here with a few partners. So I'm Lauren Foisey. I'm from the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission. I'm going to pass it off to New Hope-Solebury Cares to do a quick intro with those ladies, and then we'll go and introduce the rest of our speakers today.
Hi, Jessica Morton. I'm the program director for New Hope-Solebury Cares.
And hi, everyone. I'm Christy Cheever, and I am the projects coordinator for New Hope-Solebury Cares.
Great, thank you. So tonight we have with us representatives from the Council on Compulsive Gambling, Pennsylvania, Bucks County NAMI, and the Council of Southeast Pennsylvania. So we'll start first. Greg, would you like to do a quick intro?
Good evening, everybody. Greg Krausz, the Director of Training and Education for the Council on Compulsive Gambling. We'll be talking about adolescence and gambling behavior.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Mia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mia Scocozzo. I'm the Youth Programs Director at NAMI Bucks County. I go into just about every school district and run school programs with the kids, parents, faculty members are centered around mental health. So I'll be talking about mental health today.
My name is David Fialko. I'm a prevention specialist, a tobacco treatment specialist. I work at the Council of Southeast PA. We are a nonprofit agency working for recovery supports, advocacy, and prevention, as well as SAP, Student Assistance Program. So I kind of work in all of those, mainly prevention and SAP. In prevention, I educate young people, community members, adults, professionals on topics related to alcohol and other drugs. And then with the SAP student assistance programs, I also counsel young people who are referred for policy violations such as early initiation of alcohol use, nicotine, or marijuana. It's kind of like a first step. And then from there, we determine whether a higher level of care is needed for that individual.
Great, thank you. So this is meant to be a continuation of a conversation held during the Screenagers series that New Hope-Solebury Cares hosted last year. And we've brought together these local experts to talk about things that are happening in their fields and how they overlap with the themes discussed within the Screenagers space. So as often, kids are exposed to the vastness of the internet, and there are some things to look out for as a parent. So with further ado, we've done those introductions, and then we'll hold questions until the end of the presentation. If feel free, you can place them in chat. Ladies from New Hope-Solebury Cares will monitor those as well and ask them on your behalf to our facilitators. So we'll roll right into Greg is our first slide deck. All right.
Very glad to be here with you. Thank you for having us here. It is a growing and important topic to be able to talk about. Gambling in general. We know it is rapidly expanding in the state of Pennsylvania. It is rapidly expanding in a digital setting, in a digital format for engaging in it online. And access to forms of gambling becomes easier and easier for people, increasing the amount of interactions and potential concerns and problems for them. In addition to what I do at the council, I'm a parent myself, have children of college age, have a niece and nephew living with me currently, and am frequently having this same discussion with them within my household, as well as with people in public about what gambling is, what it's not, what we have to be aware of and concerned about, and really, as part of the work, making sure that parents, teachers, those who have interactions with our youth are having conversations about prevention, harm and risk reduction, and making healthy choices around the behavior. The Council on Compulsive Gambling is a nonprofit advocacy group. We focus very much on assisting individuals and family members around this issue of gambling and those concerns. We do not take a stand as being for or against gambling. We are taking a stand against the problems that gambling causes in communities and for some people in what we do. If you've seen advertisements around gambling, you've seen 1-800-GAMBLER advertised on the legal forms of gambling and the regulated forms of gambling. We help manage that phone number in the state of Pennsylvania and make sure people get connected. We also train professionals. And in my position as director of training and education, I will go anywhere, talk to anybody at any time about this set of issues. And talking about it related to our youth and adolescents is really important. The most direct way I can talk to you about what it is that we're thinking, and we have to start thinking broadly about what it looks like. Simple, direct definition: activity or practice of playing a game of chance, taking a chance for money or some other stake where there's a risk of losing that, right? So you're basically, what would fit in the definition of gambling is anything we would do as people that puts something of value at risk on an unknown outcome. And when we start to think about that as the definition of what gambling is, and then start to think about our youth and adolescents, although it may not be considered legal to participate in regulated forms of gambling, our youth and adolescents are doing that frequently. My niece and nephew had me playing Roblox with them this weekend. And doing a variety of different things around Roblox. There are opportunities to gamble within that game and to place value, something of value, coins, skins, something else. They love to play this game called Steal a Brain Rot, which has all sorts of things around coins and money that you can connect with and participate in that are gambling adjacent or very much gambling. Many of the worlds in the video games that we enter into as people have the opportunity to place bets and gamble. Sometimes people will talk to me, and in conversations with parents, they will say things like, well, my kid can't be gambling because they don't have any money, right? Remember, this definition says anything of value. It's betting skins in video games. It's making bets on social casinos, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and social sports betting as opportunities. The Super Bowl is coming up. Billions of dollars are going to be bet on one football game, both before and during in-game bets being placed. Bets are going to be placed at watch parties that our youth and adolescents are attending. We are an actively gambling society, and this is what Pennsylvania looks like from a regulated standpoint, right? This is what is legal in our state currently. You'll notice that this list does not include PA skill games, which are the machines you're going to see at corner stores, other places, hotel lobbies that look like a slot machine, but are not regulated currently. Not necessarily posted with an age limit to participate and play. I've walked into many of those locations and seen children who look to me to be 8, 9, 10 years old playing a PA skill machine, which is very much similar to what you would do on a slot machine in terms of gameplay. We are now seeing lots of the calls that are coming into us at 1-800-GAMBLER about the online options for gambling, online slot machines, online sports betting, and we're seeing a younger and younger age group call. 18 to 25-year-olds is a rapidly growing age group of people calling the hotline for assistance with their gambling and their gambling concerns. Lots of these are available, and this is what the age limits look like, right? So this is the age that you're supposed to be to participate and play at a minimum age for it. You'll notice that all of them are 18 or older. And we know when you look at the data from the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, which is a survey that's done across the state about youth and their engagement in behaviors and protective and risk factors, 6th graders through 12th graders, we hear that the most common form of gambling for youth and adolescents is lottery and scratch-off tickets, usually given as a gift around something. Lottery, the age limit, minimum age to participate is 18. Bingo is kind of an interesting one because it says none and shows an asterisk. You can play bingo if you're under the age of 18 in the state of Pennsylvania, as long as you're accompanied by somebody 18 or older. So the age limit's 18, but whatever age you are, if you're with an adult over that age, you can participate in that type and that form of participation. So this leads to some of the question of, well, wait, if they can't legally participate in gambling, how are our youth and adolescents participating? How are they engaging in this? And we know they are. The data that comes in is that underage youth, so 18 and under, the reports that come in from not just the US, but several other countries that are similar to us, is that youth have placed bets, 80% of them, within the past year. That's 8 out of 10 underage youth. So 8 out of 10 people under the age of 18 have reported that they've gambled in the past year. It is a common behavior. It's prevalent. And what we know is that the problem shows up about twice as high a rate as it does in adults. Adolescents are more at risk from a developmental perspective, from the way our brains are functioning as we're growing up. The frontal lobe of our brain that kind of helps us work with it as a brake to make decisions and kind of think about all the outcomes. Most research tells us not fully doing what it's supposed to do till we're 25 to 27 in terms of those decision makings. We're much more likely as youth and adolescents, and we're supposed to be this way, to take risks and take risks that are higher risk of what we do and what we don't do. So adolescents tend to be reported in several countries of having this problem at about twice the rate of adults. In it showing. And in addition to that, 4 to 6% who actually have what we'd consider a severe problem with gambling, 10 to 15% have some symptoms of a problem and are at risk of moving on to it being a bigger concern for them. So when you add those up, right, it comes out to about 15 to 20% either have the problem or at risk of developing one. That's 2 out of 10 youth are struggling with some type of concern around gambling. The adult population, they estimate it at being about 1 to 3% have this concern. That represents, right? You look at 1 to 3% or 4 to 6% in the numbers and the data, and you're like, well, that's a small number of people. Well, 1 to 3% of the US population is 5 million people. And in Pennsylvania, that 1 to 3% is 300,000 people who are having the concerns with gambling in some way. When you look at that percentage and apply it to the population of our state. So this is how adolescents are participating in gambling. Maybe you're familiar and have seen the pictures of these apps that I have up. The top one, the one that looks like an S and an L, is an app called Stadium Live. This is a sports betting app that adolescents are using because it does not require an age limit because it is considered a social casino game, just like social casino slots, the bottom picture of it, the app. These are betting games that you can participate in at any age because you're not betting real money. I found out about Stadium Live in a conversation with my 14-year-old nephew. We were watching a sporting event, and he's like, yeah, I've got a bet on this game. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're 14, right? How are you betting on anything at 14? Because I know how hard it is to set up an account underage, right? You have to prove your and verify your age. You have to prove and verify an account. And I know I didn't set up a sports betting account and I'm letting him use it, which is part of how that access happens. There are many parents who have set up sports betting apps for their youth and their adolescents under their name and let their youth and adolescents place bets. But Stadium Live, you sign up for it, it gives you coins in the game, and you place sports bets like you would on anything else. Like today, I have it on my phone because I track it and I use it as educational purposes and kind of to get an understanding of what's really going on and happening. That is, today you could have bet are 7 trades going to happen in the NBA today before the trade deadline. And you place it and you win coins or lose coins. And like many other things, the way they engage you is these microtransactions. And if you lose all your money, you can pay $9.99 and get more coins to continue to play. Loot boxes in video games, very much connected to gambling and gambling-like behaviors. This is kind of how it works if you're not familiar with it. I want orange paint for my car in a game with cars. I can buy one of 3 options based on how much money I want to spend of a virtual treasure chest that's going to give me paint colors for my car. So I decide I'm going to buy the $4.99 one because it gives me 2 colors and maybe more likely to get orange. I make that purchase and I get purple and green, not orange. And then I'm looking at it going, oh, this time it's only $10. I'll buy the gold one because I'm going to get more options. We've likely all seen stories or had our own experience as parents seeing the $300 in-game purchase bill at the end of a month. 99 cents, $1.99 doesn't sound like that much until you do it 100 times in a month. And then it adds up. Loot boxes, we're never guaranteed that we're going to get anything. They're not regulated. There's nothing that says you have to give this thing you're looking for out. But in-game purchases is the way in most video games people are currently making money and developing and using and participating in video games. So we talked about that problem happening. So some of the things that we want to pay attention to around, is an adolescent gambling? Are they having problems? One, check their phones. Ask them to show you what apps they're using, what apps they have on their phones. I've talked to a number of superintendents who do that just to kind of say, hey, what are you engaging in? They have told me close to 80% of male students have a sports betting app on their phone when they've done those kind of random discussions with people about it. but you want to look at their performance in school. Is there a change in attendance, grades? Are they suddenly having large amounts of money in their possession and talking about their wins, right? Paying attention to what they're saying. Are they doing searches for lines? They start using language about legs and parlay bets and talking about the lines, the over under. Lots of interest and excitement around those conversations is some of what you'd look for. Changes in behaviors, um, listening for the language of it. That's how I found out my nephew was participating, is I heard him using language around gambling and said, okay, let me take a look at what is really going on and what's happening. Lots of that word bet being around and being used. And you may start to see them, if it is a significant problem, start to cross these lines of committing other acts, theft, stealing, shoplifting, to help them fund their continued thing. Gambling's not just about the money. Money is the fuel for gambling's fire to continue. Our youth and adolescents are at risk of this and what happens. There's lots of resources available for you. 1-800-GAMBLER is the statewide hotline number. You can call, chat, or text. It doesn't have to be the person who has the gambling concern. It can be their family, their parents. We have a lot of information for you on our website, pacouncil.com. Gamban is software that you can place on your devices for about $40 a year that blocks thousands of gambling sites. So there's blocking software that's an option. The lottery runs a Gift Responsibly program every year around the holidays, usually holiday focus. But they focus on this piece of let's not buy lottery tickets for our youth and adolescents and introduce them to it earlier. These websites, there's a couple of them. Prevention Lane, Change the Game is a great website out of Ohio that provides information to educate youth and parents about gambling. Video game wise, there's two resources for you. Game Quitters, Reboot and Recover are sources to get information to help you and assist you if there's a video gaming concern with the youth. And then you can always contact me or the council directly. This is a direct business cell phone number for me and a email address. Happy to be of any assistance. I'll stay on the rest to hear everybody else's presentation and then answer any questions at the end.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. All right, we are going to hand the mic over to Mia. Mia, would you like me to advance slides?
Please. Thank you.
Okay. We'll pull those up. All right, let me get this presenting. All right, thumbs up, good to go? Can we see?
Yes, perfect. Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Mia, and I work for NAMI Bucks County, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I am the Youth Programs Director working in the schools directly with kids. I work with faculty members, parents, families to teach about mental health. So today, I want to talk about mental health with social media. Just a question to kind of think about yourselves. Are you happy with your usage of social media? Are you happy with your child's usage of social media? And do you have conversations around their usage of their devices and their social media? That's what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about how to adjust your usage, expecting all of you and your children to just not use it is not realistic. So my goal is to give you some other options or ways to feel more comfortable with your child's usage. I want to preface, I'm not a parent, but I did grow up in interesting circumstances. I had social media growing up. I was at that age where it started. It was just starting. I had a MySpace in middle school because we didn't really know anything about it. I had a smartphone in high school. The iPhone came out when I was in high school. So I grew up enough around this stuff to have personal experience having it and with the effects of growing up with it. So that's kind of the lens I'm using today. And I also work with a lot of students in the county. So first of all, when kids have their own devices with internet and social media, they have access to everything. Endless number of people's thoughts, opinions, criticisms, encouragements, right? It could be good, but it could be really difficult to monitor what your child is seeing and experiencing. So this is a great way to start the conversation with your child. I think about this idea when I open up my phone first thing in the morning, my alarm goes off, my fingers are already clicking onto apps without me realizing. I'm on Instagram, I'm in my email, and it's before I even get out of bed. I have all of the world's problems, and again, other people's opinions, updates from family members that I do not need to see before getting out of bed. So we need to better protect our own peace, and we need to model this so our children learn to protect their own peace as well. And in these devices, they're built to be addicting, right? So having conversations with your child is so important, and we'll talk about that. Asking them things like, how do you feel before picking up your phone? What about after you've scrolled for a while? Check in with them, ask them how they feel. Are they feeling anxious? Are they feeling energized, depleted? Do they feel insecure from what they've seen? And ask them, why do you like using your phone and what don't you like? Ask, what don't you like about using it? So this next slide shows removed. It was a project done by Eric Pickersgill. Some of you may have seen it. It went viral a few years ago, and I think about it often. This is a collage. It's not one piece. I just picked a couple that really spoke to me in terms of family settings. But it really made an impact on me and how I prioritize my quality time with my loved ones. So that's why I wanted to share it with you as well. He was inspired to do Removed after seeing a family together out at a cafe, but they were all disconnected. The daughters were each on their own devices. Mom was staring out the window in like a daze, and dad would look up and mention something he saw online that was funny, and nobody was responding, nobody was listening, and he felt inspired to do this project. And we've all seen it, right? And if you can't tell, it's images of these families, but he removes the phone from the picture and we see the disconnection. We've all experienced it. It's everywhere. It's a norm in our society. And I also think deep down we know that this is happening and we don't like it. We don't want it, but it's hard not to get sucked in because it's so addicting. And recently there was just a trend where people were posting their photos from 2016 versus now. And I think part of that was the nostalgia for a time where social media was around, but it wasn't completely consuming. And that's really real right now. So that being said, you are taking the next steps right now to educate yourself on different topics today, which is wonderful. So I just want to thank you for being here and your dedication to making those changes and educating yourself. So first, I want to talk about the positives of social media because often it's very easy to talk about negatives, and we will, but there are also positives. And this is coming from a mindset for a child, their point of view. It's why it's so complicated than simply just removing all access from your children to all social media and to their devices. It's a norm. It's a social norm, and if you completely remove them from it, there are positives to that. But also they can feel like they don't belong anymore. They could be outcasted from it. They might not have access to the information that their friends have. It gives them that sense of belonging and keeping up with their friends. It probably helps them decompress with funny videos. I know I do that at the end of the night. I watch some videos that are uplifting and funny. Um, I share them with family and friends. Social media is there to educate, or the internet is there to educate, right? Endless questions going into Google, sometimes AI to help us. And you get the opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't have met otherwise as well. So, as we know, there are many risks. So, constant comparison to their peers. I know I struggle with this as an adult with a fully developed brain. So, I can't imagine how hard it is for children in that moment to, they can't process that people's lives on social media aren't real. So, there's that increased anxiety when even maybe their phone isn't at an arm's length. If their battery's dying, or maybe if their friend isn't answering quick enough, or they're posting when they're not with them, and they feel left out. But we're also running the risk that children may see something that's too mature for their age. And as we know, social cues and nonverbal communication is lost through text. So kids aren't practicing in-person socializing enough, and this does take practice, as we know. And social anxiety is an all-time high right now. And something known with anxiety, and I experience it all the time, is that the more you avoid the thing making you anxious, the worse the anxiety is going to get. So this takes a lot of practice and skill that they're not able to utilize. So a study said that 45% of teens say they spend too much time on social media. So this is something, it tells us they know that they're doing it. So again, they're aware that they're addicted, and they're spending about 4.8 hours a day on social media. This was done in 2022, this study. So I'm curious how it would change today, or if it has at all. But that's almost a full school day. And in a year, that's equal to 73 days of just being on behind their screen on social media. We'll talk about privacy settings on your children's phones in a moment, and monitoring their usage. But have your children check their screen time and how much is being spent between each app. Talk to your child and do the math with them. Tell them if they're spending 4.8 hours, that's 73 days out of a year. Ask them what else they would do with this time. 5 hours is a lot of their day. Kids are missing out on real memories and experiences because they're spending that time behind their screen. Speaking of monitoring, on the other side here, 60% of the highest social media users who report their parents are limited in monitoring, and they have a weak relationship with their parents. So they have poor or very poor mental health. So flipping that, when they have high parental monitoring and a strong relationship with their parents, only 25% report having poor or very poor mental health. So monitoring is really important, which we will talk about. I hope this data gives you hope. This is something within your control, right? And hopefully you can take some ideas from the next slide on how to improve their mental health if they are struggling. Okay, so let's go through some ideas. These are just some ways that you can monitor their usage. Pick what might work well for you and your family, and discuss it with your kids. I can't stress that enough. Discuss this with your kids and involve your children in this process. Have a conversation with them. Let them know why you are doing this and why it's important. Kids shouldn't be randomly surprised by a new rule. They, as anyone, including myself as an adult, will naturally want to fight against something and having that new and random rule because it might not make sense to them. So including them gives them a sense of agency, and explaining your reasons will help them understand and be on board. So I want to mention again, start by checking their screen time usage. I'll show you how to do that on the next slide on their phone. This will also tell you I'll also tell you how to set limits on specific apps. And you can add a passcode so they can't ignore the limit. I know people that have a password as an adult, and like their partner has the passcode. Let them know this is a way to have a healthy boundary with your phone. I just set a limit on Facebook. It was getting too negative, so I set a limit to 20 minutes a day, and I really try to follow it. And I encourage you to also do the same things as well and model that for your kids. Also, don't be afraid to do random checks, but before you start doing random checks, let your child know that you will be randomly checking their phone usage. Your kids will probably not like it. They might feel it's an invasion of privacy, which that is valid, right? But we just saw in the last slide that high parental monitoring really helps their mental health. And they might have a big emotion and a big reaction. And like I said, that's valid. Teenagers have those and they're very impulsive with how they respond. But we as an adult, we need to respond very calmly and validate how they feel. So you can say, hey, I understand you're upset and you feel that this is an invasion of privacy. I trust you, but as your parent, it's my job to keep you safe and to help you use this technology responsibly. So that's why I'm monitoring your phone right now. And it's just one way I can do that. And then as they show responsibility while you're monitoring, you can give them more and more freedom. I've also heard from many students that parents take away their devices as punishment for almost anything, not doing chores, they fought their sibling, their grades are low, and this doesn't make sense to kids. So just make sure that the punishment matches the crime. So if they aren't doing chores, maybe say, "Hey, no phones after school until your chores are done." Or if they get into an argument with their sibling, address that issue directly. If their grades are low because they are struggling with the material or need extra help, address that issue. If it's because they're at home on their phone and not studying and doing their work, then have no phones after school until it's done. So you want it to match the crime. We want it to be fair. We want it to make sense. Also, if you take away their phone as a punishment, they will find a workaround. I've seen kids use Google Chat or their school devices, and it becomes more difficult for you to monitor. Consider having tech-free zones. For example, no devices in the bedroom. If they need an alarm clock, get them an old-fashioned one, just like we all used. I know a mom that did this. They required all family members to charge their phone overnight on the kitchen counter, and that worked really well for them. But ask your child, where and when do you think there should be tech-free zones? You might be surprised by their answer and when you can spend more quality time. There's apps that you could track their whereabouts. Life 360 is a popular one. I know a couple of people that use that. With Apple, you can use the Find My app, but let them know it might not be, they might feel you don't trust them, and that might not be the case. It might just be that you want to check on their safety. See if there's other parents that you can team up with, maybe have a tech-free play date or a tech-free party, challenge your family and their family, have a tech-free day. Talking to your children about healthy habits and relationships, remind them that what they see online isn't always reality and accurate, right? We know posts are edited and posed and carefully selected, and everything's public and permanent. Like I said, kids are impulsive. That's not their fault. It's literally their brain. So being able to talk to them, for example, like ask them, what would you do if someone asked you to send you a picture of yourself? What would you do if they said no, like in a bathing suit, right? Have these difficult conversations ahead of time before they're stuck in this position. Encourage boredom, offline interest. We need to model this behavior as well. Remember, we would go into the doctor's office and we would need to just sit there and wait. We would watch a weird daytime show or flip through a random magazine, right? That downtime is so important for our brains. We shouldn't be filling every second of our day with our phone and entertainment. So this is something really good, and challenge yourself with it. And again, discuss any underlying issues. So, are they having problems fitting in? Are they stressed about changes in their personal or school life or other issues? Maybe it's a sign of a deeper problem. Social media is used to satisfy our cravings of loneliness and boredom and depression. But what's going on underneath that? But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, like I said, it's important to calmly talk to your child about your plan ahead of time. Let them know you're checking, let them know what you're doing. Okay, so really quick, you could take a screenshot of this if you like. As promised, this is how you could set limits on the iPhone. I'll show you for Android on the next slide. The middle picture has two highlights. The second one gives the option to set a passcode. Like I said, I just did this recently, and you can decipher between specific apps on what the limit is. It's also how you find their screen time. And this is also for Android. I'm not positive about adding a passcode. I personally have an iPhone and I had to find this screenshot, but play around with the settings and you might be able to find it and just do some more research because there's probably other things that I'm not mentioning. But that's all I have. Thank you again so much to committing to your child's well-being. It's so appreciated. I hope you learned something today. I know I did. I learned some things about gambling already. I mentioned I work in school, so this is my information. We do presentations in grades 6 through 12 called Ending the Silence, and in grades K to 5 called Small Talk. You are more than welcome to reach out anytime, but thank you again for having me.
Great. Thank you, Mia. All right, and next we're going to hand over the mic to Dave Fialko.
Do you have full screen? All right, perfect, great. Thanks so much. Thanks for the invite. Mia, you touched on boredom, and I had to bring my phone to the App Genius at Oxford. No, was it the mall down here? And wait in the mall for 4.5 hours without a phone. And I am not a shopper. You know what I did for that 4.5 hours? I shopped. And I actually enjoyed myself. So, yeah, novelty, right? Anyway, yeah, I think we're all way too dependent on these things. So my name's Dave Fialko. I'm a prevention specialist, tobacco treatment specialist. I already kind of intro. I'm just going to jump into it. I'm just gonna really just touch on the developing adolescent brain and how we kind of want to how do you say delay experimentation with substances until that thing is fairly developed, and that's roughly 21 years old. As Greg said earlier, we're seeing 25, 27. I just read a study the other week, uh, 37 for males. Um, and that goes in line with the report of my wife saying my maturity really didn't kick in until my 30s. So, yeah, I always look at peer-reviewed studies that have a high p-value or a low p-value, and this one was on point. So I just want to put a thanks out there to the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission, because without their funding, I wouldn't be able to be here speaking on this. And their funding is critical to the Council of Southeast PA's mission. We appreciate everything they do as far as allowing us to continue our efforts. So really, looking at adolescents between 12 and roughly 25, 21, 37, however we're going to classify it, we're looking at that there's several phases, right? Phase 1, 0 to 9 years. Phase 3, 32 to 6, phase 2, 9 to 32 years. This is the adolescence, right? This one here is the adolescence, 9 to 32. Not so much that 12 to 21 that we've been talking about. So anytime you're exposing a brain to something new, that's, that adolescent brains crave, such as taking risks, novelty, intense rewards, kind of like gambling and devices, and drugs. These are the years that we really want to be cautious on. And when we do the math, that's 21 years in between the two. If I'm doing the math correct. No, that's longer. That's 23 years. So yeah, and then there's phase 4 and phase 5. I'm in the phase 3. I'm in my 50s, and I was in high school in the 80s, and we did not have electronic devices. We didn't have the interweb. We didn't have any of that. We had a lot of boredom. And that boredom is essential for really allowing the creation of what we call persistent memories, right? Persistent memories can be both good and bad. Persistent memories are really what we're looking at with things like process addictions, like gambling, pornography, electronic devices, gaming. These things are persistent memories. If they go too far, right, then they are all consuming. And this is a very basic model of how the mesolimbic pathway, or what we call the reward pathway in the human brain, works, right? We have the prefrontal cortex, as Craig pointed out, is kind of the brakes of the brain, right? We have the hippocampus, which is our emotional memory, and then we have the amygdala, which is our fear factor part of the brain. And these three things are constantly communicating back and forth. Last time I did this, was there a positive or negative emotional memory? If it was positive, did I get in trouble? No? Okay, cool. Then no breaks needed. You proceed to do it, and then it transmits a signal to what we call the VTA, the ventral tegmental area, and that signals the nucleus accumbens to release a little bit of dopamine, and dopamine is the drug that we all like. This is our happy chemical. And this is the motivation, the reward that we get when we gamble, when we tap the talk tick or the tweeter or the face page emojis, all those things, right? Every time we read one and we get it, we get a little bit of dopamine. Every time we play a video game, we get a little bit of dopamine. Music, art, culture, sports, dopamine. We are drug-seeking individuals, each and every one of us. And this is the pathway that allows us to get that dopamine. And between the age of 9 and 32, right, we're molding it. We're constantly adapting it. We're building these persistent memories that we're going to carry on a lifetime. The core of this is really cooked right around 21, right? So if you can make it to 21 with mostly healthy behaviors, those are the behaviors going to continue throughout the rest of your life, likely, right? But like I said, we're all drug-seeking individuals. Some of these behaviors are high risk, low risk. Some of them are antisocial, pro-social. But if we're somebody who engages in pro-social and low risk, or pro-social high risk, because there's things like, say, race car driving or rock climbing that are high risk, that are pro-social and healthy. But every day we engage in these behaviors that are this reward-based learning. The cool thing about this, if they're pro-social, if they're beneficial, if they take skill and effort, a lot of times they result in positive peer and parental recognition, pro-social recognition from a variety of different sources. This leads to pride, integrity, right? Positive self-image, positive self-esteem, improved mental health, improved physical health. It's like a win-win, because we are all looking to get high every day on a natural drug called dopamine. This is it, right? We all engage in drug-seeking behaviors, especially when we're bored. So boredom is kind of critical. If we have these things on here too much, we're not bored. We're not going to motivate to get those varying levels of dopamine, because we're just getting a steady draw of it from hitting the little buttons. This is kind of how it works, right? I'm just going to do kind of a quick draw here. Let's see here. All right. Pencil, yes. No, I don't want a vanishing pen. All right, let's see what happens here. All right. So when you engage in a conversation, you get about a 5. Yeah, and this is kind of a conglomerate of data. Some studies show a little different levels. I'm just using this as an average. About a 5% increase in dopamine. So when we talk to somebody we like, we get about a 5% increase in dopamine. That lasts a few seconds and then it's gone. When we tell each other bad dad jokes or whatnot, things like, what did the shark say when it ate the clown? It tastes funny. For those of you who laugh at that, you get about a 5% increase in dopamine, and now it's gone. But it's engaged. You kind of got the taste for it, so you want it again and again. And so you continue to engage in that conversation, and you build trust, love, friendships. This is what makes us who we are, right? And none of us are perfect, but we're just trying to find that other person who gets us high naturally with these little 5%, right? When we engage in things that require a little more effort than like conversations or jokes, we get a little more. So like getting A's on tests, right, might be 15%. For musicians, we see that it's similar. It's about a 15 to 20% increase in these short acting small doses of dopamine that require effort and skill put into it. And as soon as it's gone, we're like, yo, brain, hook me with some more of that. And the brain's like, no, nothing's free. You got to work for it. Go do that again. Just don't do it again. Do it better, because it is this varying levels based on how much effort. Sports, working out, I'm a big fan of sports and the physical activity, about a 25% increase in dopamine. And that's the most you get naturally. The brain doesn't release any more than that at one time unless that is it. The number one way to get as much dopamine as you can is go to the gym, go for a run, play a sport, physically exert yourself. It goes back to our fight or flight, our survival instincts, right? And the cool thing about like sports and music and other things is you're also engaging in camaraderie. You're also engaging in these little 5%, right? And then it's like a drug cocktail of dopamine that's happening all the time. And the cool thing is it always returns to baseline. So you go to neutral to happy to neutral to happy to neutral. And we do this throughout our days. And at the end of the day, we're exhausted. We have pride, integrity. We've experienced positive peer parental recognition. Our brain is being molded into a healthy coping mechanism. And we don't really visit down here in the bad. Now, some individuals might have a dopamine imbalance, which means they have a baseline down here, right? Which is just unnaturally lower. And so what they do is they converse and they see a medical person who a trusted psychologist, psychiatrist, medical doctor, who will prescribe them with a selective psychotropic medication, which raises their baseline to normal so that they can also engage in those. Because sometimes people who have a dopamine deficiency, they might be down here when they're getting their natural levels of reward, and it's not enough to even get them neutral. And so that's kind of like how we look at mental health disorders. Is a lot of it is either serotonin based or dopamine based. So selective serotonin inhibitors work very similarly, right? Just with the serotonin drug. And now for those individuals who have an unnatural, they are of course at risk for how do you say experiencing substance use disorders, because they may try to self-medicate with substances, right? Because what happens with substances, and let me see if I can change my color here, excuse me. I'm not sure where the color is. When you use something like nicotine, it's about a 5 to 7% increase in dopamine that lasts for about 20 minutes. And when it wears off, now you're at a deficit, right? And so young people who are using nicotine, they're not even, their conversations don't even get them to baseline. Their tests are slightly, impacted, and their sports are also impacted. So nicotine, the most common substance, is actually very seriously affecting our young people's mental health and their brain development, and motivating them to engage in things that they might not otherwise engage in. Things like marijuana, 100% increase. All right, to 200%, depending on what study you go with, but I always go with the low end to not try to, hysteria. But for young people who chronically use marijuana more than once a week, their baselines can be reset to here. And so that's why we often see young people who are using marijuana, and they're going off of this baseline here, and things that once gave them pleasure don't even get them to baseline. So now they stop doing those things and they consume more and more. But the problem is that the baseline continues to drop, and when they use, they're stuck down here. They no longer experience the very high euphoria. So now we hear young people saying things like, "Oh, I need to take a tea break," which is a THC break, to where they cease marijuana use so that their baseline returns somewhere to normal, so that they can feel these little boosts again. And for young people who are just starting out, it can maybe take a week or two to reset that baseline. But the longer you use it, the longer and longer it takes. So for somebody who's been chronically using cannabis for years, it can take somewhere around 6 months up to 3 years for their dopamine baseline to return to normal. Let's see here. How do I move on? Okay. There we go. People with mental health disorders are twice as likely to report substance use disorders than people without common mental disorders. Then I hope that chart kind of helped explain why. So if you have a young person who does have a diagnosis, like self-medicating with marijuana, alcohol, nicotine, very, very, how do you say, dangerous waters, especially during adolescence. Um, can we link, high potency cannabis and mental health? Yes, we can. There's study after study. Some of them are systematic, some of them are longitudinal. But overall, the use of higher potency cannabis, of today's cannabis, which was not around when I was in high school, right? The marijuana we had in the 80s and into the 90s was, 5 people smoke it, you laugh for 15 minutes, you end up with a wicked headache. It was sprayed with Raid, it had stems, seeds, it was just horrible stuff. Now it is a very potent substance. And I'll try to, if I have time, I'll go into the percentages. But anything of more than 2 times per week, you increase the risk of psychosis in later years by 4 times. All right. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want that. I don't want young people taking that risk, a 4-time gambling risk of experiencing cannabis psychosis or other mental health disorders. And how do we, I say always, like, wait till you're 21, wait till you're 21. This is a very high p-value study, all right, that looks at a UK study. 80% of teens, they looked at 5,000 adolescents. 80% of the teens didn't use marijuana. 17% of the teens used marijuana occasionally, and 3% of the teens used marijuana regularly, 1 or more times a week. Out of those, they look at 14% of the teens, 14% of the 80% who did not use marijuana progressed to harmful substance use. Only 14%. Out of the 17%, 83% progressed to harmful substance use behaviors. And out of the 3% who used 1 or more times a week, where parents might be like, well, little Bobby's just using it on the weekend, I don't have a problem with it, they have a 94% chance of progressing to problematic substance use in their adult years. Parents who use pot, this is something that you can click on when you get the PDFs. It's this gentleman, Mark Wolf, who said that, he's a better parent on marijuana because it allows him, and it's better than alcohol because it allows him to get down on the ground. It's different. The little child is like, Daddy, can you show me how to make a cue? And he's like, yeah, man, here, I'll show you. And so young, parents are using this substance to justify being a more engaged parent. But if they do this, 3 things, right, that children need: certainty, consistency, and compass, right? Compass. But consistency is the most important. So if you're going to get high or use a substance to be a better parent, you're going to have to do it regularly. And if you're doing it regularly, it comes at a cost, right? It loses the compass, it changes the certainty that child is experiencing, and it creates a substance use disorder. 6 ways to promote a strong support system among family members, right? As Mia and Craig both said, quality family time, right? Like, get together, right? Like, have, like, sit around. Okay, even if you have to sit around and maybe a little electronic time, share appreciation, recognize each other, develop healthy problem-solving skills, have the conversations, right? Ask them the questions, establish healthy role models. We got to model what we want to see with our kids and promote individual accountability. I just want to thank everybody. I was blown away at the amount of information that was on here, and I loved how it all links together. So I think that's my time. I'll hand it back over to Jessica. Thank you. How do I stop? There we go.
Thank you. All right.
I don't see any questions in the chat so far.
No questions, chat? Okay. All right. Well, we're almost at our time. So we can move forward if you'd like to. I just want to thank all of our presenters today, Craig, Mia, and David. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And for the folks,
I don't have anywhere I need to be, so if you want to keep it open for longer for questions, I'm fine with that too. So
okay, sure. And then thank you to our partners as well at New Hope-Solebury Cares. We appreciate your partnership here today. So all right, then do you want to do about 1 question each? Maybe I have some thoughts kind of thought up. And Greg, if it's okay, I'll start with you real quick. and I'm going slightly off script here, but the 1-800 gambler number that we're seeing, all the calls that are coming in, and you mentioned that most people are calling in about online gambling. Can you also kind of clue us in and give us some insight about like what age groups are we thinking are usually maybe calling in?
Yeah, 18 to 25 is the group that is calling growing the fastest in terms of our phone calls. A lot of it's around sports betting specifically, where we see a smaller percentage of like older adults, 65 and older. And we have people who call about the people they care about and their loved ones. I would suspect, although I don't have the data yet from 2025, we're seeing an increase in adolescents, young adults, college age, who are texting or using the chat feature versus actually picking up the phone and calling in.
Thank you. All right, Mia, one question for you real quick. So any other self-care tips that as individuals, parents, or whatnot that we should be thinking of in terms of mental health?
Yeah, really, it's all based on the person. So, as an adult, the one tip that I heard that I really like are what are some things that you used to enjoy as a child, and lean on those things again. It's something I used to love crafting when I was a kid, and it's something I haven't really done as an adult, and it's something I've been leaning on again, when I'm struggling, and it's been very helpful. But for kids, usually encouraging them to do things outside of their comfort zone, pulling them into things outside of school so they can meet new people, especially if they're in a small school district, which I was in a very small school. If you've kind of seen your people for a long time and you're not vibing with them, pull them maybe to some other community activity, and they can meet other people outside of their school. That can always be helpful as well. But if you enjoy something, just continue doing it.
Thanks, Mia. All right, and Dave, one question for you. Any recommendations for parents who are addressing the college alcohol use for college-bound students?
Yeah. So, I guess really have the conversations, right? Make it not so much punitive, but really, how it can impact everything from grants to, relationships. And, also there's one thing, a lot of college age youth, engage in multiple risk-taking behaviors. Some of those are intimate in fashion. I always stress parents to have the conversation about fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which is accidental, can be accidental exposure when a fetus is exposed to alcohol in utero. And when you're looking at that age group of like that 18 to 25, I think the last time I checked, it was around 70 to 75% of pregnancies are unplanned. And I don't have the data off the top of my head with how many of those individuals reported drinking, but alcohol is a teratogen. So it's not only unhealthy for ourselves, it can impact everything from our athleticism to our intelligence, our ability to store, recall, and apply learned information. But it can greatly impact relationships. And, I've got an eighth grader too, I always ask him, how's he being a leader? What's he doing well? Yeah. Why, what do you see and why aren't you engaging in those behaviors? Or why do you choose not to? So if we ask them with open-ended questions of, what they think of it and why they think they might not, sometimes our jobs are a lot easier. So I do like a little open-ended questions, and, reflective listening, putting it back. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're probably not going to really drink that much in college, and bring it out that way, and then come up with some sort of agreement to where if maybe they go locally, if they find themselves in a place just like in younger years, give me a call, I'll pick you up, or I'll call you an Uber if you're out in, California. Just have some sort of contract for safety, whether it's verbal, you don't need a written, it's verbal, an agreement. But I think, calling Ubers for your kids in college, are a great option. Because a lot of them do experiment with alcohol.
Thanks, Steve. All right. Well, Jessica, Christy, any last minute plugs before we hop off? No. Yes.
No, I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. That was really terrific, especially as a parent. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so on behalf of the Bucks County Drug and Alcohol Commission and New Hope-Solebury Cares, we appreciate all of you being here tonight. Thank you to our presenters and being great partners in our community. Have a good night, everyone.